Hello and welcome to another episode of the Aptitude series from Regrowtech India. I'm your host, Viren Nayab, and bringing to you the topic of relative speed in the top chapter, Speed, Time, and Distance. So let's get on the board and discuss various formulas that you will see in the relative speed. And then in the next few videos, we will be taking up a few questions as well. Let's get started. So, first of all, let's talk about what is relative speed. Relative speed is simply the speed of an object with respect to another object while both these objects are moving, right? So, let's talk about what kind of cases can occur when we are talking about relative speed. Let's take a scenario. Let's imagine okay, our favorite DDLJ characters. Let's imagine we have Raj and Simran, and you have seen those amazing slow videos where they are running and running towards one another for an eternity, right? So let's take that as an example. So I'm going to say for this example that Raj and Simran are at a distance of say 10 meters from one another. So they are at a distance of 10 meters from one another. I understand they were apparently kilometers away, but we are taking this as an example. Now Raj is running towards Simran and Simran is running towards Raj, right? If you think about it, their directions are opposite to one another. Raj is going towards Simran, whereas Simran is coming in the opposite direction, right? Now, let us say we are going to make it as a number line, for instance. And here we say that Raj is at 0, whereas Simran is at 10 meters, considering the distance between the two of them is 10 meters. The directions opposite to one another. Raj is at a speed of, say, 2 meters per second, whereas Simran is at a speed of 3 meters per second. Okay. Now, here's what happened. Or here, what generally happens. What is speed? So, speed is simply the distance one can cover in a unit time. For example, here, Raj can cover 2 meters in 1 second, whereas Simran can cover 3 meters in 1 second, right? So, how much could they cover together, right? So, for instance, if you think about it, at 1 second, Raj, who was at 0, after 1 second, he came to 2, whereas Simran, who was at 3, now is at 7, right? And the distance between the two of them is just 5 meters. Meaning, Simran covered about 3 meters from her direction, Raj covered 2 meters. So, together, they were relatively covering about a total of 5 meters in 1 second, right? So, after the first second, the distance between the two of them is only 5 meters remaining, right? Now, for another second, if you talk about what happens after the second, so Raj comes to 4 and Simran also goes 7, 5, sorry, 7, 6, 5, and she also comes to 4. So both Raj and Simran meet here in the fourth second. And if you think about it, in the second, they covered yet another 5 meters. And the distance between the two of them was 0, meaning they met, right? So here, since the direction of both the objects, in our case Raj and Simran, was opposite to one another, then the relative speed was to be added, right? Speed 1 or speed of person 1 or speed of the second object, right? So if you think about it, so in relative speed, you will find generally questions like what is their relative speed if they are in opposite or same direction. Secondly, another question is after how many minutes or after how much time do they meet? right? So in order to find how much time do they meet, we know the formula actually. Time is distance by speed. So here their initial distance was 10. The speed in this case would be relative speed, because in the same second where Raj was covering 2 seconds, Simran was covering 3, right? So together they were covering 5 meters. I'm sorry, not seconds, meters. So Raj was covering 2 meters, whereas Simran was covering 3 meters. So together they were covering about 5 meters in 1 second, right? That is what the relative speed is. So we will divide it by 5 and we will see that in 2 seconds they meet. Okay. So that is an example of relative speed when two objects are in opposite direction to one another. Now, let us also talk about what happens when two objects are in the same direction to one another. Let's see that with the help of an example too. So here, let us assume, since we are taking examples, let us say we have Tom and Jerry. And if you are a little aware of what Tom and Jerry does, they run away from one another, right? So I'm going to say again, the distance between the two of them is 10 meters. And for this particular example, I'm not going to say that Tom is at 0. Instead, I'll say Tom is at 10. And since the distance between the two of them is 10 meters again, so Jerry is at 20. Okay. Now, I'm going to say that Tom and Jerry is running towards Tom. Okay. So Tom is at a speed of say 3 meters per second, whereas Jerry is at a speed of 2 meters per second. Right? So after the first second, just like the previous example, after the first second, Jerry will be at 18, whereas Tom would be at 7. Let me write 7 on the top. Right? If you think about what happens after the first second, in the second second, again 2 meters will be covered by Jerry, who will come at 16, and Tom will come at 4. Now let's see the differences between the two. If you think about it, the first time the difference between the two of them was 20 minus 10, which was 10 meters only, because that was their initial distance. Then after the first second, they were at 18 and 7 respectively, right? So 18 minus 7 was 9, right? And after that, in the third second, after the second was over, right? So this was at 0th second, this was at first second, and this was at second second. What is happening is now Jerry was at 16 and Tom was at 4. So the difference between the two of them was 16 minus 4. So now it has become 8 meters. So if you see, after each second, the distance is decreasing by 1 only, right? Unlike the previous example, that the distance was decreasing by 5 meters. Here, the distance is decreasing by 1 meter. And if you think about it, this 1 meter is nothing but the difference between 3 and 2, right? So the relative speed in this case is 3 meters, or rather 3 minus 2, which is 1 meter per second, meaning the speed of Tom with respect to Jerry, or Jerry with respect to Tom, is simply 1 meter per second. That every second they are only able to cover a distance of 1 meter, and the distance is decreased by 1 meter in each second, right? So here, if you see, when the direction of two objects is same, the relative speed is subtracted, right? Hence, we say speed of object 1 minus speed of object 2, right? And that's your formula. Now, if again in the same way, just like the previous example, here also if they ask after how many seconds will Tom and Jerry meet, then again the same thing. We will go ahead and find time. Time is distance by speed. Here, this speed would be simply relative speed. So distance was 10 meter initially. The relative speed we calculated as 1. So it will take them about 10 seconds to catch up with one another, right? I hope this explains to you what happens when two objects are coming towards one another, meaning when they are in opposite direction, and when two objects are in the same direction, right? So if they are in opposite direction, the speeds get added, just like in case of Raj and Simran. And when they are in the same direction, then the speeds get subtracted, just like in Tom and Jerry. I hope that example was well understood. There will be questions in the following videos, so please go ahead and watch them to understand how to apply relative speed in questions that could be asked in your interviews. Thank you so much. If you liked the video, please hit that like button and subscribe. Have a good day.